How do you start a nonprofit as a teenager? Teens are some of the most socially minded people on the planet, and they are speaking up in new ways. Sometimes that means a goal of starting a nonprofit organization or socially conscious business. But teens do face a unique set of challenges when it comes to starting a nonprofit. In this video, we're going to recap the basic steps to starting a nonprofit, but then we're going to talk to some teens who have actually started nonprofits or social impact organizations themselves, and they're going to share their tips for others. Welcome or welcome back. I'm Amber Melanie Smith. I'm a nonprofit founder, social entrepreneur, and social impact YouTuber. And I love making these videos here to help people who want to change the world and might need some guidance and resources to figure out how to do that. Check out my website, foundertofulltime.com, for some online courses all about starting a nonprofit. And of course, my newsletter has resources and funding opportunities that I come across too. You can find the link to subscribe to that below. Starting a nonprofit as a teen is difficult, but not impossible. So let's get into the basic steps to starting a nonprofit. I'm only going to do a high-level overview of these steps here. If you're interested in some more in-depth information on the process and all that it entails, check out my other video, How to Start a Nonprofit Organization and Succeed, and thumbnails around here somewhere. Check that out, and I go into a lot more detail in that video. All right, step number one in the starting a nonprofit process is to assemble your board of directors age 18 and up. You want to be thinking about board members who have the skills that you need for the next 1 to 2 years of the organization's growth phase. You also want to make sure you have the minimum number or more of board members that you need according to your state's law. So look up your state's rules on what is the minimum number of board members you have to have for a nonprofit organization and meet or exceed that goal. Now, because being a board member can come with some legal responsibilities, that's why board members do have to be age 18 and up. But that doesn't mean you can't have a youth advisory board of people under 18 who are offering their perspectives to the organization. They just don't have the legal vote that comes with being on a board. Step number 2 is to choose a name for your organization. You want to check your Secretary of State will usually have a list of businesses. You want to make sure that you're not using the same name as another organization that might be doing something similar. That way you know that your name is available. And I also advise that you pick a name that is simple and easy to say and spell. That way people can find you online easily. Write your bylaws is step number 3. Your bylaws are your governing documents that basically outline how you plan to make decisions, make votes as an organization. You can find lots of templates for bylaws online. Step 4 is to have your first board meeting. This is the board meeting where you review and vote on your bylaws as a board. You want to take minutes, which is like notes on your meeting during this first board meeting, and have those recorded and available for public viewing upon request. Next is you're going to file your articles of incorporation with your state, and you're going to have to pay the state's fee for these filings as well. Once you are approved as a nonprofit corporation in your state, then you can apply to be a federally recognized nonprofit with the federal government, and that's using Form 1023. You will also have to pay fees for that too, so you're going to have to probably raise a little bit of money if you don't have the money up front to be able to file those fees. If you're feeling like that's kind of a lot, I do want to offer a disclaimer that sometimes starting a nonprofit and going through all the legal steps to do that is not always the best fit for whatever you're trying to accomplish. You might just want to do something that would just be a short-term social impact project, or maybe your idea is better suited as a business instead of a nonprofit, or rather a for-profit business rather than a nonprofit. lots of things to think about here. I have another video called 7 Alternatives to Starting a Nonprofit that can give you some ideas on other paths you might look at to make a social impact if starting a nonprofit isn't the right fit for you. All right, we're gonna meet some awesome teen change makers now who are gonna share more about their journey and all of the challenges that they have overcome and their tips for others who might want to make a difference the same way they did. Let's start out with my friend Sonali. Okay, so Sonali, share more about your work so far. What are some of your major impacts since you got started?
Yeah, so I run a nonprofit named Youth Ambassadors of Service, and we just went through a name change, so pretty exciting.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
No, yes, like why not? It's very youthful.
Yes.
And so
yes.
We're a youth-led nonprofit teaching high schoolers how to get involved in service. So providing them with the funding, resources, and initiatives that they need to make a larger difference in the community. So as Youth Ambassadors of Service, we are that youth-led nonprofit really bootstrapping to the ground, teaching high schoolers how to get involved in service. So as we were saying, high schoolers don't even have a vote. They don't know how to get involved. And we provide the resources for them to do so through peer mentors. So as an entirely youth-led nonprofit, they're the one putting in that work. This event here today is to really teach them that. It's to showcase what they can do, speaking to large donors, funders, and supporters in our community, and to give them a voice. They're largely the one who's planned this event. They're the one executing on this event. They're speaking at this event, and they're the ones who can make this happen. So they're the ones really making the impact here, not just now, but every day. So students really want to make a difference, but they don't know how. A lot of the times, these are high schoolers who don't even have a vote, right? And so we're trying to provide them the resources that they need for experiential learning in the real world. I started this organization when I was 16, and now we have served over 50,000 people through our work. So it's a ripple effect. Our students, which we've had over 100, have served hundreds, if not thousands each. So altogether, we've raised over $50,000 just over the last 2 years. We've raised like tens of thousands of items. I don't even know the number off the top of my head. And we've hosted over 20 to 30 events for local nonprofits in our community, all through High School Power.
Okay, so Sonali, I talk about some of the steps to starting a nonprofit organization, officially registered tax-exempt charity, in a lot of my other videos, but I wanted to bring Sonali on because there are definitely some unique challenges to starting a nonprofit before you turn 18. And I just want to hear right from someone who did it, what are some of those unique challenges and how did you get around them?
So a lot of it was really everything, just genuinely speaking. So we couldn't even incorporate in the state of North Carolina.
Oh yeah.
So that was an interesting challenge we had. So we couldn't become a 501c3 legal nonprofit in the entire country, nevertheless the state. So that was our first biggest challenge. From there, it was really, what's next? What can we do? So I know a lot of youth-led nonprofits that have gone through the fiscal route of getting a fiscal sponsorship to really work under. Otherwise, personally, what our organization did is we waited. We waited till I turned 18 and I could do that work. But that meant that gave us time to do things called community needs assessments, which I know Amber talks a lot about in her other videos, on how to actually test to make sure this nonprofit is feasible and viable in the long run. You can still do some basic fundraising through things like GoFundMe and other resources to really get those startup costs you need. So as soon as you do turn 18 or get your registration going, then you can make that happen. Otherwise, I did work with a lot of adults, grateful for my parents and helping me with the process, of course, but we also had a lot of legal support and support from other nonprofit leaders like Amber to really help us figure out the steps in the process and on the way.
Okay, so that's some of the legal stuff, but what are some of the other challenges that might be unique to a youth nonprofit founder?
I think it's genuinely understanding what it means to run a nonprofit. It's not a student-led club organization, any of that anymore. This is the real deal. So you have to be ready to put in hours and hours of your life. Sometimes feel the FOMO and doing other things in high school and college because you're putting in your time, dedication, and life into this. So you have to be ready to put in the work. And what that really means is, do you see this going the distance? How are you going to get your organization to a place of sustainability where it doesn't need you and it can succeed long term, even if you disappear?
Now, okay, disclaimer, because I know what some of y'all are thinking, because I've heard your comments before, but I've talked about this idea of designing a nonprofit and creating its structure such that it could survive without you. And you might be thinking, but I want to do this work forever. And I totally get that because I'm the same way. And so Sonali, as you can see. But you never know what's going to happen in life. And you want this mission to survive past you. So you can do what's healthy for the organization.
Exactly.
Set up those systems.
And that's what we did. So at first we were still figuring it out, and I've had a hard time figuring out that for our organization because we don't function as most organizations do. So we have a board of directors, as you're supposed to legally, who are over 18 because that's what's required in our state.
Right.
But our student board functions like our staff. So we actually have 8 members on our student board who run our programming, who run the marketing, who run the grants, who do all the fundraising, and they're high schoolers. So it's how can we also give students that are served the power to have the real say in what we do.
And I think that's especially critical for your organization because its whole mission is to uplift the youth. So give them a voice, right?
Exactly, and it's not just a performative voice, they're genuinely doing the work.
So awesome. Okay, so you're starting with basically $0. $0, 0 donors, 0 everything. I know, so sad. What have been some of the most successful strategies for you to build up your nonprofit's impacts, supporters, etc., from basically the ground up?
I think a lot of it was figuring out what we wanted to do, really distilling that vision into something that was approachable, right? So we want to serve this many people by the end of this year. So really figuring out what are those impacts and then working backwards. Exactly. Because I think sometimes we get lost so much in the day-to-day, then what do you do with that, right? But if you're looking at that big picture vision and really making it attainable and achievable, then you can work through to those goals and have those KPIs tracking those metrics to make it successful.
For those who don't know what a KPI is,
it is a key performance indicator. So it's similar to goals in the sense of that's what you track to see what you're doing to be successful, not just now, but in the long term.
And as nonprofits, we start this whole thing in order to make an impact in the community. And I've talked about in other videos, well, I want to know how I'm making an impact. I want to be able to measure it. And that way, if something's not working, I can adjust what I'm doing in order to make it more effective.
Exactly, and it also helped us think about how do we want to structure leadership? How do we want to create good practices from the start, rather than having to fix bad practices later? I think some of the biggest challenges that we had when it came to that was not knowing. So also bringing in mentors and other nonprofit leaders who knew what they were doing and being humble enough to ask. I think that was the biggest thing. We had to be like, hey, we're figuring this out. We're a first-time founder, especially in high school when we didn't have any previous experience or network to come to. And then just reaching out, being thoughtful and being intentional with who we make connections with and how we build those.
Yeah, you're like years ahead of many adult founders that I know. Good job.
You're so sweet.
So everyone's thinking, but how do you raise money from the ground up? As a youth-led nonprofit, how did you even approach fundraising, again, starting from zero?
So a lot of it was think about who you already know. I know that we came in with no network because, again, we were a bunch of high schoolers with no previous work experience or anything. And so it was really figuring that piece out for us. And so that fundraising, starting with the people we already know, but putting ourselves out there. Not being scared to put ourselves in a room and showcase and show up as our full selves. And I think that was what really moved people. Of course, that also meant some people didn't trust what we were doing, but the people who did put their all in. And so that was really great. Otherwise, of course, once we were starting to build that base, have impacts within our programs, we've gotten grant funding for a lot of different purposes. Specific to our programs, capacity building, we've received it all, whether it might be a small $1,000 grant or a $50,000 grant.
That's right, congrats.
Thank you. But alongside that, there are actually a lot of grants focused on youth-led efforts and youth-led endeavors. It just takes a little bit of time to find them, but once you're able to find them and get yourselves in those networks, also networking with other youth-led nonprofit leaders can get you into those places. Because it's a small network, there's not many of us. But for those who are there, we're looking to raise all tides. So why not?
Yeah, and I've talked about you're going to hear no a lot, and that's okay. I know with my organization and many others I've heard of, you just have to accept that not everyone's going to be the person who falls in love with your specific mission. You just have to find the wonderful, amazing unicorns who will fall in love with your mission, because they are out there if you look hard enough.
Exactly, and there are more than enough people who love our mission specifically for the fact that it's youth-led. There are a lot of wonderful organizations focused around youth and youth activism, but what happens if youth are the people actually running the show? Because they always talk about how, yes, climate change is largely fought by people who are young. Think about other endeavors such as the civil rights movement, all led by college students. There are students who want to make a difference, and so what platforms can we provide them to do that?
Exactly. There are lots of ways to change the world. You know that, I know that. And sometimes starting a nonprofit actually isn't the best way to change the world, depending on what you want to do and your particular skill sets and your vision.
Yeah.
So what are alternatives? What are some reasons not to start a nonprofit?
Yeah. So I'm grateful I started this organization, of course. It's been a wonderful journey. I've personally learned so much, the students have, etc. But it doesn't have to be the only way. I personally know a lot of students who are looking for a little bit of extra boost for college applications, and I promise, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but what I'm also saying is there's other ways of getting that done. And even if it's for other purposes, you really need to think this decision through, because you're going to have to commit minimum a few years of sleepless nights to this.
True story.
Yes, but it's all worth it, I promise, if you're doing it with the right intention and right behind it. But for other alternatives, something that I've loved is how wonderful the nonprofit community in the area I live is. So one thing I'd love to keep doing is have students involved in those work, or have students involved in the work of that organization. Please cut that out.
Volunteering and whatnot.
Yeah, so volunteering, but also if you have an idea of how to better that organization, do that. If you think of a clothing nonprofit that clothes children, right, and you think of a great program that they could add, what can you do to help that organization implement it? What can you do to fundraise for that organization that you really care about? I know in my community, there's thousands of nonprofits. A lot of those needs are already filled. And as soon as you turn 18, think about joining boards. Think about having a larger role in some of these other organizations, or get involved in policy. So there's lots of ways to do it. I know personally for myself, I want to get into corporate social responsibility or social impact in the do-good world, so social entrepreneurship or something of the sort. So I love the nonprofit sector, but I know long-term, I'm trying to figure out what options are there and how do we give back in different ways. It's something we try to teach all of our students, because we showcase to them that yes, running a nonprofit is great. You can do that and be part of our team and be part of that core functionality. But there are so many other ways long-term to make a real impact.
And I've seen some really great articles and research lately that talks about how Gen Z is very sector agnostic, meaning it doesn't have to be a nonprofit or the nonprofit sector where you make a difference. You could do good through a business, social entrepreneurship, as Sonali said. You could run for office. We need a lot of that right now.
Yes, please.
Volunteering, even aiming to make a lot of money so that you can be a philanthropist and give it away, that's highly valuable also.
Or even now, think about your purchase power, right? Like, what can you do now with the resources you have when it comes to voting, purchasing from places you think are great when it comes to community impact, etc.
Exactly. There's so much to be done.
Yep.
Thanks, Sonali.
Always.
Sonali's pretty amazing. I think so. I know you'll think so too after watching that. Let's hear from a couple of other teen change makers now, specifically on what is the top challenge that they encountered as a young nonprofit leader.
Hi everyone, my name is Brianna Pinto and I'm the CEO of Pinto Futbol Foundation, and today I'm here to answer the 3 questions about what it takes to establish a nonprofit as a young individual.
What's up guys, my name is Hurshneet Chadha. I'm the founder and CEO of Project Smile AZ. And our mission here is to make smiles for all from A to Z, and I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about my startup journey with my startup.
Number one of the first challenges that I faced was just how difficult it is to file the forms with the IRS and establish your organization. I think it can be quite confusing, but luckily I was someone that had wise counsel of people who were well informed about a nonprofit work. And additionally, you have to submit another form to obtain 501c3 status, which also comes with a cost. So I think that can be cost prohibitive for a lot of young individuals.
One of the top challenges I've really faced as a young founder has been time management. Really getting to learn a lot about how to effectively manage my time this early on. It's definitely been a learning curve. So early on, I was just totally lost. I'd write things down, things would get lost, and things were disorganized. But as I've grown into the role of a founder, I've been able to implement strategies to make sure that I get what I need to get done on any single given day, so that I'm reaching my goals for the week, the month, the quarter, the year, just to make sure that everything is on track for that. So that's definitely been a big challenge for us early on.
Number two, something that I would do differently is establish social media accounts for my foundation to garner more donations earlier on, especially as I was running my clinics. All of my clinics were totally funded, and I strive to make my clinics free to the public. So doing this by establishing social media accounts would allow me to spread the word and get support from the community.
What would I do if I could start all over again? So I've had the idea for Project Smile Easy for a pretty long time, probably around 7th grade, but I didn't start until it was my freshman year in high school. And I don't know why I didn't do that. If I had any, if there was any way I could go back to my 7th grade self, I would tell that person to start early, just start it right then and there. Or at least start doing some market research to validate what I was doing, and then get a start that way. Just because the sooner you start, the more data you have, and the more you know about your market and the industry you're working in. And as soon as you have that all figured out, that's when you can really start to scale and make your biggest impact.
Lastly, one tip that I would give to other young people looking to make their own nonprofits is get a group of people that support your vision and can support you with just all the logistics behind the scenes to bringing it to life, including, filing the forms, making sure that you're in compliance, taxes, things of that nature, because it is a lot that can fall on one person's shoulder. And if you're able to tap into the help of others, it will really benefit you in the long run. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this, and I'm so excited to see what's next for all the young people that want to establish their own nonprofit.
If I could give one tip to young people that want to make a social impact venture, I would say really be passionate. Love what you do, because if you don't love what you do, it's going to show. People are going to see that you're not passionate. And if you're not passionate, why should they put their hardest work into the organization or the impact that you're trying to build? So thank you so much.
What do you think? Do you know teens who want to make a social impact, who are maybe thinking about starting a nonprofit, who have started a nonprofit? Share more about these wonderful young change makers in the comments. I know I'm always feeling more optimistic after I meet folks like that, so I'd love to learn more about them. Or if you started a nonprofit when you were a teenager, what were some of the challenges and successes that you had? Share that in the comments too. As I mentioned before, if you are interested in the process of starting a nonprofit, I have 2 courses on my website, foundertofulltime.com, that help you cover that process plus some more about fundraising. I also have my newsletter for change makers that you can subscribe to using the link below. And finally, I have my group Change the World or Bust on Facebook. You can come join us there. We've got 5,000 plus people around the world who are making a difference, all in their own unique ways, sharing their stories. So come join us. That's all I have for you today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.